Supreme Court.
The next Chief Justice.
Yeah, next Chief Justice. I'm going to let him give you a little information about himself and talk some of his issues and things he's looking forward to, and then I know we'll have a period of time to ask him some questions.
Right,
So
right.
Judge,
Happy
go right
to.
ahead.
Thank you so much. Delighted to be here. This is terrific. I really appreciate y'all's hospitality. Very impressed by this big, energetic turnout. This is wonderful. So I am delighted to hop on over. We were in Huntsville a little bit earlier, so came through a little bit of rain, a little bit of lightning, but happy to be here. Let me introduce myself to those of you who don't know me. I am Bob Vance. For the last 16 years or so, I've been a circuit judge. That's a trial level judge down in Birmingham. I've loved being a trial judge in the state of Alabama. Really feel like you're doing something to help folks as a trial judge. But 6 years ago, I decided that I had to step out, and even though it was a difficult assignment, I agreed to step in about this time, 6 years ago, and serve as a replacement nominee for Chief Justice back then, running against a man you may have heard of named Roy Moore. Now, I had only 80 days to campaign since I was a replacement nominee. And let me tell you, running a statewide campaign in 80 days' time is not for the faint of heart. It was a fire drill every day. And most of the time I didn't know what the heck I was doing. But the end result is, while we were not victorious, we came close. We got over 48% of the vote. And there are no moral victories, I don't guess, in politics, but nevertheless, I came away feeling pretty good about what we were able to accomplish. And more importantly, the closeness of that race, I think, really showed people that maybe Alabama was ready to turn that corner. Maybe we were getting tired of the divisive, ugly politics that we all kind of grown up with ever since the days of George Wallace. Casey's too young to remember that, but I grew up in the 60s, 70s, and I remember those days. And maybe we are at a point where we're ready to put our best foot forward. Certainly, that hope was confirmed last December when Doug Jones beat Roy Moore and became our United States Senator. And that race really did give us hope. And don't forget, hope is a very powerful word in politics. If you've got hope, if there's a good chance, then it changes everything. 6 years ago, folks were nice, supportive, energetic for me, but it wasn't anything like what I'm seeing now. And that's been a huge difference from 6 years back. Now, back in 2012, when I ran on the ballot, it was just about the only Democratic candidates on the ballot to speak of were me and President Obama. Going around the state back then, I was pretty lonely. There were not groups like this with all the energy and the enthusiasm, and there weren't all the great candidates that we have now. And I mean, I'm talking all over the state of Alabama. I've been to deep red places like Shelby County and in Baldwin County, and there are energetic, large, enthusiastic Democratic groups there that have just sprung up like mushrooms after a rain. And they are so fired up. And they're candidates all over the state of Alabama. And not just names, not just warm bodies, but really great impressive candidates. And I will admit, most of them are women, and that's a good thing. I really believe, and I don't want to sound sexist about this, but I really think women, in large part, are the future of the Democratic Party. I'm all for it. And given the caliber of women that I have met on the campaign trail, I have no doubt that the Democrats are putting their best foot forward in this election cycle. So I tell some of these candidates that are running for some of these state, House, and Senate seats, I'm expecting to ride your coattails come November 6th. It will be really interesting to see how that all plays out, because before, 2 years, 4 years, 6 years ago, we didn't have candidates for a lot of these spots. And the Republicans were able to just kind of march in without much of a contest. Well, they're going to have a contest this go round. And we're going to put up a fight. And we have the energy. We have the enthusiasm. It's just potential right now, and I do want to emphasize this point. All this great energy we got right now, we've got to translate that into hard work every single day between now and November 6th. Just feeling good about ourselves, not going to cut it. And I want to take this opportunity to ask you to do this. Don't do the easy things. Do the hard things for your favorite candidates. It could be Heine, for example, or it could be Joseph, who's a great candidate. I've gotten to know Joseph over the last few months and very impressed. I hope you have an opportunity to meet him. We got good folks up and down the line, but we cannot win by ourselves. We need y'all. And we need y'all to do the heavy lifting for us. It's easy to put a yard sign out in your front yard, and we appreciate that. What we really need is folks to cart yard signs around and deliver. We appreciate your wearing pins for us and putting on bumper stickers. But all candidates need your financial support. That's just the way it is. So, and that's hard. I would say 80 to 90% of my campaign is sitting in one particular room calling folks asking for money. That ain't fun. I love these events because it gets me out of that room. But that's what politics is these days. And it, for better or for worse. But that's all just to say we need your help. So whoever your favorite candidate is, help them out. Help her out. Tell your friends and neighbors repeatedly. Folks you go to church with. Engage in those conversations. Talk about why our candidates are the better choice. And don't get into fistfights or anything about it, but we can talk reason and sense. We can disagree without being disagreeable, but maybe we can win some folks over. I suspect most folks around really haven't made their minds up yet, one way or the other. We've all heard about a third are Democrats, about a third are Republicans, and then there's that third in the middle that we really need to focus on. And I think in 2018, that is very doable. So that's all just to encourage all of y'all, and I suspect y'all don't need much encouragement, not this group. But between now and Election Day, do what you can to help us out. We really would appreciate it. And with everyone getting together, we're going to make a little bit of noise come November 6th. Now, a quick word about why you should care about my race. What does this position of Chief Justice do anyway? Y'all know about the governor. The position of governor, what the governor does or is supposed to do. Attorney General, we know about the importance of Attorney General. Secretary of State, how important that position is. But what about this position of Chief Justice? It's It's a bit of a mystery to a lot of people. So I really am trying to go around as I campaign through the state explaining why people should care about my race. The Chief Justice, first of all, most people know, is one of 9 members of the Alabama Supreme Court. That's the highest court we have in our state judicial system. It hears appeals from all courts, from Madison County Circuit Court, for example, and all the other courts across the state of Alabama. And that's certainly true. To me, though, the more important responsibility of the Chief Justice is to serve as the administrative official for all of our courts. For Madison County Circuit Court and Jefferson County Circuit Court and all the other courts, district courts, probate courts. The Chief Justice has to be there as the advocate, as the representative for all those courts in dealing with the legislature and the governor and everyone else in Montgomery invested in our system of justice. Now, our courts, to me, have been a great group of men and women throughout this state, really working hard to make sure our system of justice works as best it can for the people of this state. Our system of justice is not perfect, but we try our best. We have a goal of providing fairness for everyone. We do fall short on occasion. But nevertheless, my experience has been that the thousands of men and women who work in our court system are really trying to serve you to the best of their abilities. They need that strong advocate for them in Montgomery, especially these days. You've all heard about how tight money has been. Court funding has been tight. Funding for all government agencies in the state of Alabama has been so difficult. It seems like we're fighting for scraps every single year. So we need that voice in Montgomery for our courts, so our system of justice can work for the people of Alabama. These days we hear about problems such as the epidemic of heroin and opioid use. We hear about people who need treatment for mental illness and they're not getting the treatment that they need. Instead, we're letting them wander the streets. Many of them get in trouble with the law. They wind up in our jails and prisons. And then the question is, what do we do then with those folks who need our help? They're not getting that help. Instead, all too often, we're warehousing them in our prisons. In fact, a federal judge recently characterized it in just that way, holding that the prisons of Alabama were violating the constitutional rights of those who needed treatment for their mental illnesses and weren't getting it. That's all just to say we're dealing with some really big issues, some really big problems in our court system. That's why it's so important that we have a functioning court system. That's why we need that voice in Montgomery to represent our courts. And that's what the Chief Justice should be about. One more thing about the Chief Justice. Y'all know there are a lot of politicians in Montgomery. That's not a newsflash. And those politicians, they'll go back and forth. They'll fight with one another. And we expect them to get in the political arena and hash it out over this issue or that. That's fine. But the Chief Justice should be a figure in Montgomery that really stands apart from all that. Our courts in Alabama, they're for everyone. Politics has no place in our court system. When you go into any courtroom, you want whatever matter you're involved in, whatever proceeding it may be, you want it handled with fundamental fairness. You want it decided on the facts and the law. That's what our whole system of law is all about. That's why we're talking so much about all the disasters happening in Washington these days, because we're fearful that our system of law is slipping away. But our courts, more than any place else, that should be the haven where the law is there for everyone. And fairness and justice should be there for everyone. And the Chief Justice has to be the embodiment, the symbol for that spirit. The Chief Justice has to be there for all Alabamians. Now, we've had a Chief Justice in the past who didn't believe like I do, who's used divisive politics, who's tried to demonize one group or another, pitting us against one another for his own personal political gain. To me, that's the exact opposite of what the Chief Justice should be about. More than any other official in Montgomery, the Chief Justice should stand above all that garbage and say, I'm here for everyone. Now, in this election, I'm not running against Roy Moore. I am running against Roy Moore's closest ally. Mr. Parker has been an admirer, an ally of Roy Moore for the last 15 years. I got into this race because of my concerns that while Judge Moore was no longer on the ballot, we still have his spirit, that spirit of divisiveness, of ugliness, of bigotry that we have to deal with. So this race will provide a stark contrast between the two candidates, Democrat and Republican. That's why I'm running this race. That's why I think the stakes are so large in this race for Chief Justice. And that's why the people of Alabama need to focus and care about this race for Chief Justice. So, I have stood on my soapbox long enough. I'll shut up now. But if there are any questions about my race, about politics in general, about my wife, happy to answer them. I'm just delighted to be here with you tonight to visit with y'all. Really appreciate y'all's hospitality in having me here. And I'm happy to answer questions now or privately after the fact. So, yes, ma'am.
I have a question that concerns general politics in
Right.
Alabama. I thought there was a federal law that says in order for you to have a license to run a television station, you had to have a certain portion of your programming devoted to the equal hearing out, as
Right.
I'm saying, of the
If you
political
put one
party.
candidate on, you got to put the opposing candidate on.
Okay, is that it? Because I thought they had to have them. They had to have, you had to be invited. There had to be some, like you have to have public service
Yeah.
announcements. So maybe I'm just, I don't understand.
I'm not an expert at that, but I would think, yes, I think there is a requirement, first of all, that any station, television or radio station, that is under the jurisdiction of the Federal Communications Commission, provide what's called public service announcements. That doesn't necessarily have to be for political candidates. And I don't think there's a requirement that you're obliged to put political candidates on. But I think there is, or at least there was, and this may have changed. Again, I'm not an expert on this, but I think there is some sort of rule suggesting if you put
One on.
one on, you got to put the opposing
Equal time.
candidate on.
Yeah,
Yeah, an equal time provision.
Right.
That's right. That's right. But I don't think you're obliged to put either one on.
Yeah. A lot of voters don't even know there's any Democrats running. They're so used to just being the Republicans. They don't.
Right.
They're clueless.
Now, let me say this, and 6 years ago, going back to my last campaign, when I got in it, my campaign manager said, okay, we don't have a lot of time to work with. We don't have time to build a very detailed campaign. What we're going to do is we're going to raise a bunch of money and we're going to put it all in television commercials. And that's what we did. We were successful in raising a lot of money, and we put, I guess, about 95%, 99% of it into television commercials. So we ran a bunch of commercials. It was me and my two kids, and they were fabulous. And, they were nice. They were good, and they worked. That's why I think the race was so close. I get in the race this year, and my media consultant says, okay, Judge, first thing you need to understand is no one under 30 watches television anymore. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah. Maybe streaming, something like Netflix or something. But in terms of network television, the younger crowd just doesn't watch that. How do you reach them? Well, social media. Texting, Facebook, Instagram. I still haven't figured out Instagram. But my daughter, Ellie, says it's great. And Jennifer there has become a real pro at it. She's my social media person.
Now go follow him on Instagram, please. And go look for yourself in the picture in his story tonight, so you may see yourself in there.
But we've had to do that. We've had to have an active presence on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter to try to broaden our message. Now, the great thing is that stuff's all pretty much free. I mean, you can buy ads on Facebook, for example, but what we're doing right now, it's absolutely free. And you can build yourself quite an audience and get your message out to thousands of people just by using your phone, like Jennifer's doing. So that's been a great thing. But it is complicated, and it is hard to get the message out to a lot of people when you don't have a lot of resources. That's why Democrats have struggled historically. The guys on the other side, they've had all the money.
And they're going to keep having all the money if people don't get out and vote, then out of office.
Well, that's why I was saying, to the extent we can, we need to help our candidates out. We still, you know, if it's just terms of money, then we're still going to be struggling. But there was that race in where that woman just won a seat in the congressional seat, or at least the Democratic nomination up
In the Bronx?
Bronx.
She won two districts.
Yeah, I saw that. She got a pick.
She won the 15th.
And she was heavily out.
in the 14th.
Yeah, yeah, she was heavily outspent. She ran against an incumbent. I mean, and the person she ran against was high up there in the Democratic hierarchy.
He won Pelosi's seat.
Yeah. So that's just to say money's not everything. You've got to have a good message.
But
You
the
gotta have
Bronx is
good-
different. You would go out with a car and put a bullhorn on your car,
Yeah.
and you reach 10,000